All right, what you're about to see is my observation 3 video in which I'm discussing the T-TESS observation and the rubric with a group of teachers. I attempted to do this video early in the week in the presence of about 10 teachers, but what happened was after I finished and went back over to the video, I realized that some kind of way the video had stopped and only 3 minutes and 56 seconds were actually recorded. Therefore, I had to figure out another way to get the recording done. So I started contemplating, okay, can I do it virtually? Teachers are complaining about time and planning periods being taken away from us. So is there a way to do it in which is more convenient for them so that I don't take hours out of their school day? So that's when I started brainstorming a little bit, talked to, well, I actually got some advice from Dr. Thompson, which I was already looking into the Zoom program and decided to go that route. So this is my first attempt at having a virtual meeting through the use of Zoom, which I'm kind of excited about. There was a learning curve on there, but I think I'll get better with it as time goes. And I think it'd be something that's really beneficial and teachers will see a benefit of it on our campus. So enjoy. All right. Thanks everybody for joining in on this T-TESS meeting. I had this meeting earlier in the week as part of my doctoral internship program, having technology issues. So when I'm recording on the campus and I go back to check the recording, for some reason it stopped and I only had like 3 minutes and 56 seconds recorded after talking about 32 minutes. So that was kind of disappointing. So since we want to be, our principal believes in innovation, one of the things I wanted to do was try to figure out, okay, how can I reach out to my teachers because, you know, we have issues with different conference times. Of course, I oversee about 22 of y'all, some in science, some in AVID, some in fine arts. So every department has different off planning periods, so it becomes difficult to try to meet with everyone. So start brainstorming a little bit. Professor of mine actually recommended Dr. Thompson that Zoom, which I happen to be looking into it. I've used it before in my program, so I say, hey, let's try to reach out and see if we could do this meeting here. We have the advantage of recording the meeting as well, so if the people that are not able to log on because of family obligations or whatever, they can go back and they can review the meeting at any time that they want to. So I think it makes a great resource. Also, I would encourage you to try to use this in your classrooms as well. There was actually, I saw through social media, there was actually a first grade teacher, matter of fact, to where she would do bedtime reading with her students every single night through a program like this, what I thought was pretty neat. So I'm not saying that you have to read to some high school students late at night, but just different ways. If it's on the weekend or whatever and you want to offer an additional study session before a test, or just tutoring for those that may that don't have the ability to come early because of the bus or stay late because of the bus, this gives you a viable option as well. Regardless of how many students you might have that log into this program, you can record it, and therefore they will have access to that video, so you kind of negate some of the excuses for them. All right, so the purpose of this is we have T-TESS observations coming up, and I know there were some questions about that. I wanted to relay some information. There are some district expectations as well. So as y'all know, I'm currently doing my internship for my superintendent practicum. So I've been engaged in a lot of meetings this year. So that's why some of y'all haven't seen me on campus as much as of late, because I've been clocking those intern hours. But that has been advantageous for me, to sped up my learning process since I'm new to the district. It's also given me insight on some of the district expectations. Now, one of the concerns that been expressed by Central Admin is that the T-TESS evaluation ratings that they see don't necessarily align with student performance and what they are seeing when they actually come through and conduct their walkthroughs. Meaning that you have all these teachers in the district rated accomplished, or some distinguished, and some, you know, many proficient. But when it comes to student achievement, that teacher rating does not reflect the results that they see in student achievement. So we've been tasked to make sure that we are following the rubric when rating teachers. So please understand that your rating will come based on the language that's actually in the rubric. I have emailed all of you a digital copy as well as handed you a physical copy of the T-TESS rubric, which I have up on the screen as well. So it will be in the recording if you cannot see it right now, which I don't know if you can, but it will be in the recording. One of the things I want to make sure that you are to draw your attention to is the language for each rating. There is a certain expectation for developing, proficient, accomplished, and distinguished. I don't expect anybody to be at improvement needed. I hadn't seen any evidence of that on the walkthroughs that I've conducted throughout the year. But make sure that you understand the difference between most and all. There are some categories. I know some teachers say, well, I think I'm accomplished. I want to be here to accomplish, but I know I'm at minimum proficient. But pay attention in certain dimensions rather, it says that it expects to see all participants or all students engaged in certain activities. And with developing, it just says most. So make sure that you pay attention to that. If you have any questions, once you actually dissect it, please reach out to me via email, or you see me in the hallway and say, hey, Mr. Pugh, I have some questions regarding this. How do I demonstrate this so that I can receive this particular rating? Now, what I would encourage you to do is, as I said, when I met with you at the beginning of the year and we had our goal setting conferences, look at the rating right now based on what you know that is occurring on a daily basis in your classroom. If you were to rate yourself right now based on your current practice, where would you rate yourself honestly? And so that's the thing, honestly. So make sure that you look at it and do an honest assessment. It's about reflection. If there are some categories where you're developing, some areas, dimensions where you're developing, that's okay. This is a growth model. That is what I am here for, to help you to grow in that particular area. But in order to do that, you have to be honest about where you currently are. Okay, so going through, and I know I asked in the email, I asked all of you to have your T-TESS rubric handy with you. So I don't know, hopefully you either have it up digitally or you have your physical copy that I gave you. So right now, if you take a look at Dimension 1.1, which deals with planning, to be honest, there should be no one scoring below accomplished in this particular area, because this has to do with planning, and I've been in many PLCs, so I know the work that actually goes into the planning of the particular lesson. Now, planning the lesson and the lesson coming out the way that we plan, those are two different things, but we do want to see evidence that planning has taken place, you know, based on student data, and I am aware that that is taking place because I am actually sitting in the PLC meetings observing. Okay, let's go to Dimension 1.1 on standards and alignment. Okay, on the planning part. Okay, still there. All right, so let's. Okay, no, I'm sorry. It's 1.1 as the first. Okay, data, Dimension 1.2. I'm sorry, data and assessment. Okay. When I'm doing the observation, I'd like to see the expectation is, even according to the rubric. Let's look at accomplished. It says formal and informal assessments to monitor progress of all students and incorporate appropriate diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment data into the lesson. Now, this should actually be occurring in the PLC and what you're planning this lesson. So your lessons should be planned with the use of student data. So you should know the areas in which your particular students are weak in. So those areas should be addressed. And so making reference to that during the observation will be beneficial. Okay, let's go to Dimension 1.3, knowledge of students. By now, we're at the end of the first semester. We ought to have pretty good knowledge of where our students currently are. If we want to look at the accomplished category, it says all lessons that connect to students' prior knowledge, experience, and future learning and expectations. Second bullet, guidance for students to apply their strengths, background knowledge, life experience, and skills to enhance their own learning. And the third bullet, opportunities for students to utilize their individual learning patterns, habits, and needs. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on that? Miss Melinda? Okay. Sorry, Miss Melinda, you're muted. I'm sorry. Oh, once again, so I'm still learning this too. This is my first time using this, but I do want to make this a mainstay on the campus. I really like what I'm seeing right now. So some of you, I see Miss Melinda, you tried to answer and you were on mute. If you want to speak to where you can be heard, make sure that you click the mute button to unmute yourself, or there's also a chat option in which you can type in to ask your question there as well. All right. Moving on to dimension 1.4, activities. During the lessons now, the expectation is that the lessons are student-centered and not teacher-driven, meaning that we like to see, the expectation is to see student engagement, not necessarily as we refer to the sage on the stage where the teacher is doing all the instruction and so doing all the learning. So as the old saying goes, you know, he who does the work does the learning. So like to see students actively engaged in their learning process. All right, so dimension 2.1, achieving expectations. Sorry, I clicked up a little bit. Okay. Teacher supports all learners in their pursuit of high levels of academic and social emotional success. For an accomplished teacher, this teacher will provide opportunities for students to establish high academic, social, emotional expectations for themselves, persist with the lesson until there is evidence that most students demonstrate mastery of the objective. And look, this is here. This is that word most. Even for accomplished here, it did not say all. It said most. So that's a majority of the students. So when we say most, we're looking at probably at least 85 to probably 90% of the students there demonstrate mastery of that particular objective. Anticipate students' mistakes and encourages students to avoid common learning pitfalls. This should be addressed also in the plan of the lessons and the PLC, in the district curriculum, which is the expectation that that is what we're working from. It has the misconceptions in there. So going in and prepping for that lesson, we should already know the areas that our students struggle in and be able to address that in the lesson. Establishes systems where students take initiative of their own learning and they self-monitor. All right. Dimension 2.2. The teacher uses content and pedagogical expertise to design and execute lessons aligned with the state standards, related content, and student needs. This should not be an issue with us because it is mandated that we are using the district curriculum. That is part of what we are observing when we walk through, which most of you already know because we've had those coaching conversations, that we are to be using the district curriculum, which is aligned to the state standards. All right, dimension 2.3, the teacher clearly and accurately communicates to support persistent, deeper learning and effective effort. For an accomplished teacher, it says establishes classroom practices that encourage all students to communicate effectively, including the use of visual tools and technology with the teacher and their peers, anticipates possible student misunderstandings once again, provides explanations that are clear and coherent, and uses verbal and written communication that is clear, asks questions at the creative, evaluative, and or analysis level that focuses on the objective and the lesson. If we're using, of course, Canvas. In Canvas, we have the TEKS, the SEs in there. There's also vocabulary based on Bloom's at a certain level. Just make sure that we are incorporating that into the lesson that I'm actually going to be observing. All right, dimension 2.4, the teacher differentiates instruction, aligning methods, techniques to the diverse needs of students. Okay. Typically, this is an area, even on my previous campus, that teachers score the lowest category in, is the differentiation part. Please understand that differentiation does not mean that you always have to teach a different lesson for students. So teachers ask, hey, I got 25 students in there. How am I going to teach 10, 15 different lessons? Differentiation is not always about you teaching something different. Differentiation can be in what you do in your classroom. This particular student struggles when they sit at the back, move them to the front. or in this particular class, they're not attentive back there, which is going to interfere with their ability to learn for that particular day. I'm sorry, I had a thing pop up on my computer I'm trying to get off. Let me stop before I mess up something. Now I gotta go back, find my, okay. Sorry, like I say, learning process. So just make sure that we are giving, this is not about equality. Say, well, I do the same thing for everybody. There are different students' needs. I'm sure if you have students in there that have a 504 accommodations, students that are receiving special educational services, that have IEPs, we need to make sure that all those needs are addressed in your lesson. If you have any questions about that, please see me before the day of your evaluation. All right, monitor and adjust. This means the only way you can monitor and adjust, there has to be some type of formative or summative assessment that's actually taking place. Otherwise, you won't know if your student, the question would be, if that's not occurring, how do you know that your students are actually retaining the content or mastering the content that you're actually covering if you're not assessing? If you're not assessing and you don't know if they're retaining the material or not, how do you go back? How do you make the adjustments? Okay. So let's make sure that we are attentive and paying attention to that. I'm sorry. The learning environment. The teacher organizes a safe, accessible, and efficient classroom. During my walkthroughs, I hadn't seen this to really be a problem. Some teachers panic when they have the administrator in there doing their observation. Of course, we understand it's high school, it's classroom. Students are going to act up, so teachers get to freak out and like, oh my God, I got my evaluator in here and they're acting crazy or they're talking out loud. Hey, we understand that that's a normal classroom. What is going on with it? Okay, that's a normal classroom. We expect that. We expect that there will be students that, okay, they have an audience, so they want to try to act out. That's normal. The problem is, as long as you address it, then there is no issue. If a student becomes disruptive in class and it is not addressed, that's when it becomes an issue because they are not permitted to disrupt the learning environment. All right. Teacher establishes, communicates, and maintains clear expectations for student behavior. Like I said, on conducting my walkthroughs, I hadn't seen any issue. As a matter of fact, even in some of the feedback forms the feedback that I've given you on the walkthroughs, I've indicated that based on what I've seen in student behavior, it is evident that the expectations for work and behavior have been established in your particular classroom, right? Classroom culture kind of speaks for itself. Dimension 4.1, the teacher meets district expectations for attendance, professional appearance, decorum, procedural, ethical, legal, and statutory responsibilities. Accomplished, behaves in accordance with the Code of Ethics standard practices for Texas educators, models all professional standards, appearance within the classroom, advocates for the needs of all students in the classroom. This should be a gimme, even if we want to get off into the distinguished category. So we've done a great job of that. I hadn't seen any issues with teacher dress. Of course, student dress is another issue, but teacher's dress has not been an issue, so I don't think we should have a problem there. All right. The teacher reflects on his or her practice, accomplished, sets some short-term, long-term professional goals based on self-assessment, reflection, peer. Okay, this is part of the goal-setting conference, so we know that you've set goals. So we will have that conversation there. So this should be another gimme. If you have any questions about it, make sure that you get in touch with me before we do the evaluation. I'm sorry, I know I'm going through this because I don't want to take up much of your time. I appreciate you, logging in to do this. So are there any questions up to this point? Yeah, remember, if you want to say something, you unmute yourself and you can speak then where everybody can hear you, or you can put something in the chat. Okay. Miss Melinda says no questions. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now let me, if you flip to the back of your packet, or scroll to the back if you're looking at it on your computer screen. To me, this is it in a nutshell. This is the golden nugget, I guess you can say. So, as remember, I talked that some teachers were wondering, the difference in which categories I have to have most in or all. This right here tells you everything as far as learning environment, classroom culture, student behavior. You can see on each level what the expectation is, from few to most to all, to rarely, to inconsistently, to consistently, to few, some, most, regularly, consistently. I'm sorry. As you can see that way on the left on that distinguishing end, that's pretty tight. That's pretty much 100%. And that's why, to be honest, it's pretty tough to hit distinguish in all category because it's very difficult to get all. But as you can see, accomplished, it does not, as far as the learning environment, classroom culture, that should be appropriate all the time. That shouldn't be a major issue. As far as learning environment and managing student behavior, you see it says consistently, instruction and achieving expectation, that's most. It does not say all like it does with distinguished. Instruction, as far as content, knowledge, and expertise, it says regularly. It does not say consistently. That's a difference. Consistently pretty much means all the time. And then the instruction differentiation, regularly versus always. Yeah. Does anybody have any comment on that? Most teachers at my previous campus found that page there to be very, very valuable. That was their target when planning the lesson and trying to reach their desired rating. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? So we're talking about that. So does anybody have any questions regarding the use of Zoom and this program? Like I said, I am still in the learning process here. But, the district does want us to be innovative. Even some of the superintendent competencies that I've looked at refer to the use of technology. So I really want to jump on this and kind of make use of it and see if we can kind of get it to spread across the campus. And you don't have to tell me now, but at one point in time when you see me in the hallways or whatever, I'd like to know, what do you think about having virtual department meetings at times, whether it be after hours or maybe on a Saturday morning, if you're willing to get up that, give up some of that time, or just get your input on it and see and see what you think. Okay, does anybody have any question? Miss Jasmine, Miss Joyce, Miss Melinda? Okay.
I have no questions, Mr. Pugh.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, Miss Jasmine. Oh, did you say you had no questions?
Yes, I have no questions.
Oh, okay. I thought you said I have a question. Okay. I'm really liking this. I think this is something we can grow as a campus, especially as a department. So, hey, let's take my team, the people I always say, let's see how we can really push this and then get this to spread campus-wide. Let us be the model and work out all the kinks, which is like what we're doing right now. This is my first time being on the end of a host. Like I said, I've used it before with some of my professors in my program. So it's a little different being on the other end. So I can promise you this: it will get better. It will get better. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no questions, like I said, I appreciate you giving up the time to assist me with this. Hopefully, you found the information that I presented to you beneficial. Like I said, if there's anything, once you look through it and you have any questions on it, make sure that you come and ask me. If there's a certain rating that you're trying to get, and there's a certain category that you have some concerns with, hey, come and talk to me before the evaluation and say, hey, what do I need to do, or what do you need to see in order for me to be rated this? And I have no problem sitting down and letting you know. That's what I'm here for, is to help you grow. All right. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining in, and I will see you on campus. All right, what you just witnessed was my first attempt at having a virtual meeting with the use of Zoom. I actually had this meeting in person about sometime this week, about midweek. And after speaking to a group of teachers about 32 minutes, I realized once I went over to my phone for the recording that somehow the video stopped recording. And so I didn't have any of that footage. So I started to brainstorm and figure out how can I prevent this from happening going forward and what is the best way, because I couldn't get those teachers back together again and talk about the exact same thing. But there were some teachers who were not able to make it because I oversee various departments and the planning periods don't align. So that's when I began to brainstorm a little bit, look into some virtual meeting programs, and then uh, Dr. Thompson actually recommended Zoom, which is the main one I was looking at. So I decided to jump on it, look into it, and try it. I think that this could be a door opener on my campus. I think it's a new way, it could possibly be a new way of doing some things to get back some of the teachers' time. For those teachers in those groups in which you can have a meeting in person, that would be fine. And then there's an option to where some of those are willing to give up time after school, before school, or maybe even on the weekend to have a virtual meeting because it better fits their schedule. So this is something that I want to kind of introduce to the campus and kind of pilot to see how it goes. I can see many benefits of it as an administrator, but I can also see a benefit as a teacher from a teaching standpoint if they decide to use it with their students. There are several students that we have that cannot make it to tutoring because of transportation or because of certain circumstances, like they may have to go home and watch their younger sibling. So this is a way for teachers to actually bring the tutoring into the home of the students. So I think it's a great opportunity. But in my conversation, of course, in person, there was much more feedback, many more questions regarding the process. What in doing the intern hours, what I've come to find out, and as a benefit of being in some of those meetings, obtaining those hours, you get to hear information firsthand. So in the past, there's been a misalignment between what central admin and coordinators and instructional coaches are seeing when they do instructional walks on campus compared to how those teachers are actually rated on their T-TESS evaluation. Many teachers that they view as struggling teachers are some kind of way receiving high evaluations, which is a misalignment, doesn't align with the student achievement in those individual classes. So we've been charged from central admin as administrators to make sure that we are in the classrooms, to make sure that the instruction is aligned with the district curriculum, and to make sure that when we're rating that we're actually following the rubric. And so it was my goal to make sure that those teachers know that when I am in their rating, it is not a personal opinion. It is based on the language of the rubric. So I wanted to bring their attention to that to see. There were questions for teachers about when does it have to be most, or when does it have to be all? So I wanted to physically provide them with the document and go through it and give them an opportunity to ask any questions. I think it went well. There was, a learning curve on using the program for the first time, but I'm excited about it. I'm probably going to become a Zoom junkie pretty soon because I see such a benefit of the program. Um, so I enjoyed the experience. So I guess the video not working or stop recording when I was in class actually opened up a new door for me that I'm excited to step through.